Morning, Bob. Your utensil.
Shavua tov.
So, for example, if something that I want to transfer ownership to you is in your basket, let's say in your basket or in your box, a receptacle, a utensil that has a receptacle is also a domain to acquire things. But you can't acquire something merely by an action with no active acquisition. So we said we're going to rabbinically award the trapped animal to the person who trapped it, even though from the Torah, it's not his, but for the sake of peace, not that fighting, even though he didn't really acquire it from the Torah, we're going to give it to him. So now we have to differentiate between the time when he would have acquired it according to the Torah, and we don't have any need for an enactment to the rabbis, and a case where he didn't acquire it according to the Torah, but the rabbis put it into his possession anyway to keep peace. Etc. And so we learned in the Mishnah the traps of these animals, from the rabbinically, for the sake of peace, we consider it stealing to take it. So the Gemara says, if you have, for example, if you have like strings, traps of strings without any, like a net, similar to a net, without any inside, you know, saying like a snare. Okay, let's say a rope trap that'll go around. Or for example, also if you have it's a similar thing. It's a trap also like similar to a net, but it's made out of grass, out of a certain type of grass. No one disagrees that I'm sorry, I said backwards. I said the other way. These are two traps that have it inside. I said backwards. These two traps which have it inside, no one disagrees. Everyone agrees that it's stealing to take it. Once a person made a trap that has an inside, the inside acquires him. Keep league. Where's the whole argument? Balachi. Okay, bukukri. Here's what they had ways of trapping without any utensil. They would either hook, there's no base key. You're right. There's no inside. They're like a hook. A hook just grabs the animal, or they'd also have a string with a bunch of hooks on it. Either way, it would just snare the animal, but the animal wasn't inside of anything. That's the place where our Mishnah said rabbinically we considered it stealing to take it, and there's an argument of how far, whether it's whether it's like the Torah or not like the Torah. Etc. Similar in the Mishnah we learned. The found object of a deaf mute, okay, or of an imbecile, or of a minor, Rabbi Yossi or Gezel Gamor. So the first opinion said also what the rabbis consider it stealing, and Rabbi Yossi said it's completely stealing. Amar Chisda, he said, Gezel Gamor Devrei. When he said it's completely stealing, he didn't mean that it's stealing according to the Torah. He meant to say what? It's like the Torah according to the rabbis, meaning what?
They have no das, so they can't make a kinyum in the Torah.
Right. But you're not fighting. If you let a kid find something or an imbecile, you're gonna fighting down all the time. So the right says, listen, it's his. Don't take it. The only argument is to what degree. What's the difference? So let's see about Dayan and whether I can go to court and get it back. According to the first opinion, you're not allowed to steal it. But if you stole it, they cannot go to court and force you to give it back. According to the second opinion. According to Rav Chisda, according to Rav Yossi, pardon me, it's considered like it was stolen from the Torah, and you can go to court and you can retrieve it. Now we learn further. Remember, we said that if there's a poor man and he is taking the poor man's portions from the top of the olive tree, he's getting those olives that are left over. Masha Tachta, the part that falls down below him, okay, it's also for the sake of peace, we consider it stealing. You're not allowed to take it. Tana, okay, we learned in Likeh, if he grabbed it and he got it to his hand and then it fell, okay, that's really from the Torah stealing. Once he picked it up and dropped it, it's his, and that's stealing. So therefore, what's the case? So the case where it's only rabbinically stealing is that essentially in the process of picking the olives that he picks, some olives fall off the tree. He agitates the tree, so they get knocked off. You know what I'm saying? Here, you ever picked fruits? Sometimes fruits that you're not picking also fall off because you shake the branches, you bang into them, whatever it is. So anything that he actually got in his hand belongs to him. And if you take that, even if it fell to the ground, you're stealing. The other way, but the things where he didn't take them in hand, but they fell to the ground, that rabbinically is considered stealing. Rav Kahana was going to the town called Hutzel. He saw a certain man that had bishadei upie. He saw the guy he was throwing sticks at the date tree to get the dates. Now you know date palms here. You have them here. The fruits are very high. It's hard. Huh? It's hard. It's hard to harvest napalm unless you're a good. You have to be a good climber and have strong and have unscratchable knees. Yeah, that's what they hear these silos, right? So it's common. A guy didn't have a machine. How do you get dates down? So you take something, you throw it at the dates, to get them to go down. So the guy was throwing sticks. So he was throwing the sticks at the dates, so they should fall down. Also, so Rav Kahana, some of those ones that fell down, he took them and he ate them. Amar Leisa, the guy said to him, Chazi Mar Davida should the bidoy should have seen it. What do you mean? How can you take them? Don't you see that with my own hands I knocked them down? Okay, I knocked, and okay, you're stealing. Amar Leisa said to him, he says, you must be from the city of Hutzol, where the place of Rabbi Yoshia, where he teaches every other halacha, and that's why you're an expert. And Karyalai, and Rav Kahana said about Rabbi Yoshia, Tzaddik is the foundational word. The person who correctly understood that he really owned that stuff.
When he knocked them down, that's really he would really corner them.
Yeah, according to that's a question the Gemara doesn't say here. Actually, you're asking good. The Gemara doesn't say by dint of what. It sounds like simply like the principle that we learned earlier. That anything that goes down by process of him harvesting is his from the rabbis. That's what it looks like simply.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like simply.
It's not a traditional.
And that's what we learned earlier.
Right.
Now, and in general, remember, these are rules. These are rules. The rabbis do things just to keep the peace. It's very important. And what I'm going to tell you in the next part, you're going to see really interesting. I want to give you another example. You probably know that if it's unfortunate in America, it's not common, but Jews throughout history, Jews did business. They had, and it's natural. There's nothing wrong with having a business dispute. There's nothing. If you do business with people, there's constantly arguments in business. Who owes what? You didn't make the delivery. It was damaged. There's always disputes in business. It's natural. If you do business, if you deal in money, you're going to have some disputes. So Jews traditionally, what they go to the base there, they go to the rabbis, and they ask for a ruling.
The only Havamina that he was throwing the stick and knocking down that he was planning to become.
Exactly. So I want to show you, give you an example. So
if this was a tree that someone owned the tree.
No, this is where the leftovers were free. They were allowed to take them. If it was privately owned, nobody could take them at all. It was a tree where those things were left whoever was going to take them. Right.
That wasn't.
It would belong to the owner of the field. Yeah. So what happens? We even though we do go to the rabbis, if we have a business dispute, but we always try, rather than going for a straight judgment, we try for what's called a pashar. You probably heard of this. A pashar means what? We go for a compromise. Now, what is a compromise? Is not what people think. People are uneducated. Think, oh, look, we'll split it 50-50. A compromise is not. That's not what a compromise is. A compromise is one guy wins and one guy loses. But listen, instead, and the guy wins. Believe me, he gets the money. But rather than giving 100% of what he's owed, he'll get 90%. You understand? He'll get 92%, 88%. What's the point? This guy clearly, in a case where we compromise in the basement, we pass him halacha. This guy's owed. The money belongs to this guy, not to that guy. But we don't kill the guy who lost. We don't wipe him out of it. We give him a break. And I want you to know what it is. Why do we do that? Here, if the money belongs to this guy, why giving this guy a break? He owes the money, and that's the truth. But we get them to make a kinyan before they come to court, before they judge it. Say, listen, you can accept whatever we tell you. And I'm gonna tell you why it is. Yeah, you have a business dispute with your buddy, especially if you lived in a Jewish town. You knew everybody. You're gonna go to court today. You're gonna wipe him out financially, and the next day, who's gonna be sitting next to you? The guy, at Kiddush, the guy who you just wiped out financially. You're gonna meet him at the PTA meetings. Everything, you're gonna find the guy. Yeah, what kind of life is that? So what do the rabbis do? They said, you know what? Listen, that's right. This money's yours. But you want to maintain a relationship with your neighbors. Every business, one day he's gonna win, one day you're gonna win. I said, give the guy a break. You understand what I'm saying? So that the rabbis are interested in a pashara. As long as we get, you say, what's the reasoning? You're right. The money's yours. So you gotta get every penny. Yeah, this guy's fighting for. He's also fighting to make a living. Your neighbor's also trying to make a living. What do you think? Every Jew, during the Depression, it was terrible. People couldn't get a job. People walked for miles and miles and miles to get a job for pennies. You couldn't get a job. So there was a Jewish guy. He was desperate. He had a family. You couldn't get you work double. You can't get a job. So finally, there's only one job available. That's to tame the lions in the circus. This guy thinking, what are you gonna do? Look, you got to feed his family. He goes in. He applies. Nobody wants to be a lion tamer. They give him a whip. They give him a gun, a pistol, and a stool. No, goes in. He goes into the cage with the lion. The guy figures this is it. His life is over. He says, "Oh, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu." He figures his life is over, and the lion finishes. He says, "Hashem Echad." So the guy looks at the lion. The lion says, "What do you think? You're the only kid trying to get a job?" He says. Everybody's trying to make a living. Everybody's trying to make a living. You understand? So you don't want to kill your neighbor. You understand? You're right. You won the case. You're right. He's wrong. But you don't want to wipe a person out. You want to continue having a relationship with the person and continue having a friendly town. And that's the way it's done. So we're going to see them, and now we're going to see that the rabbis also. We're going to learn a very interesting thing. That the rabbis do things to raise the standard of Judaism. Okay, we're going to learn about, for example, the rabbis wanted, for example, it's forbidden to make truma tameh. And a Kohen is forbidden to eat truma that is tameh. Even according to Ladida. Now, what about regular produce? There's no prohibition for regular produce to become tameh. There's no prohibition for a Jew to eat produce that's tameh. But the rabbis wanted to raise the standards in the Jewish society, and in particular to protect holy objects from becoming unclean. And Jews who were religious and dedicated conducted themselves in a way that they didn't become tameh, and they ate their food b'tahara. Even regular food, they did not make tameh or eat it tameh. That was the standard for Jews who were trying to do a good job. And the truth is that they had to separate themselves to some degree from the other Jews who weren't going to behave that way. A second thing, that we have to separate all of the gifts that from agriculture, like truma to the Kohen and Meiser to the Levi, and the Levites take Meiser from the Meiser to give, and we have to give 2 years in a row Meiser to the poor, and the third year Meiser. Yeah,
Meiser Sheni 2 years, and Meiser only 1 year.
Yeah, but from the other way, Meiser Sheni 2 years, and then Meiser on it. Yeah. So also there's a problem, because there were people who weren't so educated and they weren't careful about Meiser. But most of them were, but some of them weren't. And really, from the Torah, you should be able to buy from anybody, because since most people, even uneducated people, took Meiser, it's not a problem. But the rabbis were stringent, and they said if you bought produce from an uneducated person, you had to take Meiser. You had to take Meiser. And it really was a stringency of the rabbis, because the majority did take it. And essentially that made a difference. It made a separation between the more educated and the more religious and the less. Now, what I'm going to tell you now is very, very important. It's fine to raise the standards in your community, but you don't raise them in a way that puts down the other people. And what I'm telling you is very, very important, because it happens all the time. It's fine. You want to raise the standard. You want to live a better standard. It's wonderful. And you want to encourage other people to live a better standard. It's wonderful. But not in a way that says, hey, you guys, you don't rate. You're second rate. You're not allowed to do that. You can't do that. That's going to destroy the fabric of Jewish society. So how can I raise the standards? The answer is you raise them, and you don't pull off dirty shtick like that and put people down.
You do it more but sin it.
Yeah, we're going to see in a minute, all through the following page. We're going to see how the rabbis, like a fine-tuning dial on a unit, on a fine-tuned dial, they're going to raise the standards, but not in a way that denigrates other people, so they feel ostracized. Who do we ostracize? Wicked people. If a person is bad, we ostracize them. A wicked person, we ostracize. We throw him out. We throw the guy out. We're not going to give him an aliyah. We're going to throw bad people. You have to ostracize. They should be ostracized. They should do true. You have to ostracize. But a person who's less religious than you should not be ostracized. You can raise the standard in the community and even make strata, but not in a way that puts people down. And you have to know
even if someone's not religious at all.
That's correct. Even if someone's not religious at all, exactly. And the point is like this: you have to know. If you feel a need to put people down, something's wrong. That's an illness. Why do you want to make people feel bad? It's an illness. You want to make other people. It's a sickness. You know what I'm saying? That's an illness. Something's wrong with you. Why you want to make others? Why do you want somebody to feel bad for? For what? There's no reason to do that. So we're going to see even with. So it's correct. You're allowed to raise the standards, and even what, and even make strata. We're going to have one group can intermingle, and they don't intermingle, but not in a way that what, not in a way that takes away peace and harmony in the community. It's very, 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 very important to understand this. Okay, so we're going to learn now. More things that we do for the sake of peace. For the sake of peace and good relations in the world, we don't stop the poor of the nations, even though we're not obligated to give them the charity, the portions that we separate for the Jewish poor. We don't stop them. We let them come and also collect, just like the Jewish poor people can come and collect from the portions of the produce. They can also collect. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught us. Furthermore, so Tom, we learned that he said, we support, we give charity to the poor of the non-Jews together with the poor, just like together means just like we support the poor people of the Jews. And just like we visit the Jewish sick, we visit non-Jewish sick also, because that's the way to have a peaceful world. Okay, and just like we bury Jewish dead, we also bury non-Jewish dead. For the ways of peace. This doesn't mean, I want you to understand the point. Remember, we didn't say you can't bury other people. The point is like this: you have an obligation towards Jews. You have an obligation to support every Jew. Here, if you had enough money, you'd have to support you'd have to support every poor person in the world. Nobody has that much money, so we all do it together. Everybody shares. Everybody takes a portion of their money and helps to support the poor. All together, we do the job. You're obligated. You have an obligation to bury the Jewish dead. You know what I'm saying? You have an obligation to visit the Jewish sick. Now here, the non-Jews they'll take care of theirs. However, even though you're not obligated, we go out of our way. We also for the sake of peace, in order to make sure that there's good relations in the world, even though really who should be taking care of their poor and their sick and their burials? They should. But we do also. Why? When we see that that's going to make peaceful relation, we want the world to function. Okay.
I'll give it a Marshall. I was a healthcare chaplain.
Yeah.
And in the Cloud Gadol, you're visiting two people in a room. One's Jewish, one's a guy. You visit the Jewish patient. You talk to them. You can't ignore the guy that's next door. You got to say something to them. Give them a little something, whatever.
Happened to me once actually years ago. Also, we went to visit Jewish patients in Shabbos. This is in New York, in Mommy's hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped in next door to the guy too.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do. We want these things. You want good relations. That's the way it's supposed to be. Smart people want a beautiful and peaceful world. A world that's not jealous. A world that's not feeling disenfranchised. That's the right thing to do. And firstly, you certainly don't purposely make somebody feel bad, but even inadvertently, you don't want people to feel disenfranchised. It's very, very, very important.
Sometimes it can be a Kiddush Hashem.
And it's a Kiddush Hashem, sure, absolutely. If I start to tell you stories, I won't stop. I have so many stories I can't tell you. When Jews act properly towards non-Jews, the results are ridiculous. Okay. Mishal Isha. Now we're going to see these differentiations that we spoke of. Mishal Isha Chaberta Hachashud al Shvi, even though a woman's neighbor is suspect of what? Of using produce from the seventh year, which is forbidden. I want to give you a rule. In the seventh year, the produce that goes in everybody's field it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to everybody. Everybody has a right to. In the seventh year, your field is open. You can't lock it up, and anybody can come. And anything you're not allowed to plant it, and anything that grew on its own, everybody can come and take that produce in the seventh year, and you can't stop them. But even the people who are allowed to take it are only because the way the psukim are written, they're only allowed to take it for as long as it remains in the field. As long as wild animals will still find the produce, you're allowed to eat what you brought home. Once it disappears from the field, in order for you to continue eating the produce that you took from the seventh year, which was permissible, you have to do what's called beer. You have to take it out and declare it ownerless. Then if nobody takes it, you can take it back and you can eat it. But if you don't do that, then that produce, if the time to get rid of it, you don't make it ownerless, it becomes forbidden. So a woman, her neighbor, is suspect of what? Of using produce that's forbidden. So you would think what? So she is allowed to lend her what's it called? A sifter, a sifter and a sorter. A kabra is for it sorts grain, rechaim, and a grinding stone. What do you mean? We're going to see in a minute. Why is that? What do you mean? Her neighbor eats produce that's no good. How can I help her? Yeah, how can I give her utensils to use when she's going to eat produce that's forbidden? Avalo taber, but she's allowed to lend her the stuff. Avalo taber, she herself cannot come and choose the grain with her friend. She can't go and help her to grind it. You understand? So she's allowed to, so to speak, abet her, but she can't actually go on her own and join. Eishes Chavir, the wife of a Chavir, of a person, and if you have a family where they don't eat even non-holy food, they only eat in cleanliness. Mishal Eishes Amar, she's allowed to lend her utensils to the wife of an Amar, who they don't eat their food with Tara. Napa Bakabra, again, she can give the sifter and the sorter. She could even choose and even grind and even sift with her. But once she puts the water into the dough, when you put the water in the dough, what happens? You become chayav to give challah. Challah is like truma, okay? Lo tiga ima. Then she can't help her at all. Why? Because now she's dealing with something which is written, as we can see from the Torah, right? That's Torah prohibition. We're going to see. You're not allowed to support. You're not allowed to abet people who are sinning. Okay, and all the cases where we said that you're allowed to lend them these utensils, that also would be forbidden, but we allow it in order for what? For the sake of peace. And this is what I was telling you before. Even though these people maybe are not behaving the best way, but we don't want to ostracize people of society. We don't want that. We want to keep the peace and keep people together. Eventually things work out. I want to tell you one story. I got to tell you. Don't worry, we're not late. We're not late. But listen to this. And this is a story. I heard. It broke my heart. There was a guy. He was a rebbe in one of the younger classes, in the yeshiva. In the old days, today a watch is a penny. I got a watch. My watches cost $13. But when I was a kid, a watch was something of value. It was a big deal for a kid to have a watch. So a guy got a watch. He showed it to everybody in the class. It was a big deal. And sometime, I guess he put it on the table. Sometime it disappeared. It was clear somebody in the class took the kid's watch. So he went to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, look, I'm sorry, somebody took the watch. We have to give it back. He says, I want everybody to line up against the wall. Everyone to stand in a line against the wall. And I want you all to close your eyes. And I'm going to go through every boy's pocket till I find the watch. And I'm going to return the watch. But everybody keep their eyes closed. I don't want you to see who I find it. So they all closed their eyes, and the Rebbe went through everybody's pockets, and he found the watch, and he told him, okay, you can open your eyes, and he took the watch and he gave it to the boy that it belonged to. Years later, the boy who had stolen the watch, he met up with the Rebbe. So he came to Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, he said, oh, so nice to see you. He says, I was the boy who stole the watch. How come you never said a word to me? You gave back the watch to the other guy, and you never said a word to me. He said, I didn't know you stole it. He said, what do you mean you didn't know I stole it? You took it out of my pocket. He said, when I told all the boys to close their eyes, they shouldn't see who stole it. He says, when I went through, I also closed my eyes. He says, I went down the line, my eyes. Is that a Rebbe? Now, what's my point? Because what you have to realize at all times, what is your goal? Is your goal to give somebody grief? Is your goal to denigrate someone? Or is your goal to help everybody be a better Jew? There are times a person's wicked. We gotta kill people sometimes. There's nothing you can do. That's what they're saying. But your goal is not to punish people. Your goal is not to hurt them. Your goal is not to make them feel bad. Is that what you want? I want to make people feel better. I want them to be inspired to do the Torah, not to steal, not to. Yeah, that kid I think did fine. When the kid saw what the relation of the Rebbe was, he grew up properly. The other way. So you have to. It's an illness. You see, you don't want to put people down. You want to build people up. What God made us. We were nothing. He made us something. He didn't come to knock us down. He came to build us up. You see, and that's what we have to do. The same thing over here. Even though these people they're not here. These people are not doing the best. They're eating food, produce that's forbidden. But our goal is not to destroy their self-image and to destroy their personality. It's to do something we're going to deal in a way. I can't support wrongdoing. On the other hand, I don't want to destroy the person. I want to keep them close, you understand, so that they will do the right thing. And these are beautiful. There's so much to learn from these Gemaras. Incredible. And that's the proper attitude. I got more. If I start telling stories, I won't stop forever. It's also what? Also we said what? We in the 7th year, also we learned further, listen to this, that when we see the non-Jews are working a field, remember, they don't have any prohibition for the 7th year. We support them, we help them, we support them. We'll see what that means. But we can't support a Jew who's transgressing, who's tilling his field during the 7th year. We can't help him. But Shalom B'Shloma, and also that we give Shalom Aleichem to a non-Jew, Mepnei Darkei Shalom. For the sake of peace, we also say Shalom even to what? Even to a non-Jew, according to this. Okay, Gemara. Now this is a little complicated. Just keep your hat on. What's the difference? We said what? That you can't help. We said in the beginning, we said you can't help the person who's doing wrong. You can't help them separate and grind their produce in the 7th year. But Maishana Sefer, how come in the end we learn that I can help the wife of the uneducated person who eats not holy produce, not clean produce? I can help them grind. So, but when it came to the 7th year, I can't help them grind, etc. And to the woman who does it non-clean, I can't help her. Rabbi says, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you, you're making a mistake. I'm sorry. The second one part of the people who are. The second one, you can help the person who doesn't take maestros. I'm sorry, I said wrong. It says, Amar Rabbi says, I'll tell you why. Like I told you before, because the truth is most uneducated people really do take maestro. So according to the Torah, since the vast majority of uneducated people take meiser, I can buy from any uneducated person and not worry about it, and I can use it. But the rabbis are stringent, even though it's only a minority who don't. The rabbi said that I must consider the food to be untithed, and I have to take meiser, so I can't help it. Rav says, I'll give you a different answer. How come at the beginning I can't help the person in the 7th year, but I can't help the person who doesn't take meisers? The Rabbi Meir. You're making a mistake. The Amaretz they're talking about is not the classic Amaretz. The Amaretz we were talking about is a person who most likely took Meiser, but we're not sure. But the Amaretz or Rabbi Meir is different. These are people. Okay, they are people who what? It's a person who we know does take Meiser. The only thing is that it's like I told you, it's a person who eats unclean food. That's the Amaretz of Meir is different. Across the Amaretz, the person who usually takes meiser, but we're not sure. But the Meir's Amaretz certainly does take meiser, but eats food in non-cleanliness. And now, so why can I help that person? V'tuma tahara d'Rabbanan. And tuma tahara, remember, eating non-clean regular produce is only a rabbinic prohibition. There's no Torah prohibition. The tiny, because we learned Ezu Amaretz, what's considered an Amaretz? We use it. Kol she'en ochel chula v'tara. The Rameir says, see, it's a person who does take meisers. It's just a person who doesn't eat his produce in cleanliness. The Chachamim Omrim, and the rabbis say, anybody who doesn't take maestros. So that was the argument. So therefore, we're saying in our Mishnah, in the Sefer, we're talking about a person who does take maestros, but just doesn't eat patara. So I'm allowed to help them. You can even grind with her. It's not a problem. The Gemara says, get out of here. How can you tell me that's what it's talking about? The Tani Sefer, since we learned later, once she puts the water in and you have to take challah, you're no longer allowed to help her. Mechlal dereisha, if that's what it's talking about, okay, that implies that what? Since it can't be a problem of tuma and tara because it's talking about peiros. Okay, it has to be talking about.
You could be talking about pears and not hooks.
Right. So in the end, we're talking about. It seems at the beginning is what it's talking about fruits that were never prepared to become tummy. And if we're talking about a person who takes meisers, okay, then why did they say that I can only help because of Darkei Shalom, because of peace, and because of Darkei Shalom? There's no problem at all because there's no meiser problem and there's no uncleanliness problem. The Gemara says no. You make a mistake. Both the first part and the second part are talking about what? About whether the produce was clean or not. Bereisha, the beginning part, B'tumas Chulin, it was talking about non-holy produce, which is tamei, which is only rabbinic. Okay, the Seifa in the end is what? Okay, B'tumas Challah. It's talking about the Tuma of Challah, which is what? Which is from the Torah. You're not allowed to make the Challah tamei, and therefore you cannot help her anymore. Hi, Verminu. The Gemara Sakasha. Didn't we learn 1 second? Tochanim, we learn if produce is clean and there's no problem with shvius, I'm allowed to grind. Umafkidin, I can give it as a deposit. I can give it to people who eat shvius fruits. I don't have to worry that the person I'm allowed to take grind with them, and my fruit. I give him. I can give him my fruit to grind, and I give him, and I can also put as a deposit by them, even though they eat fruit that's not kosher. They eat seventh year fruit, and I don't have to worry that they're going to substitute their forbidden seventh year fruit with my non-seventh year fruit. I can trust them. People people who don't keep the seventh year and people who eat their produce in an unclean way, I'm allowed to leave my produce with them or even have them grind it. I don't have to worry that they're going to replace it. But that's only what. But I cannot help the people who eat the seventh year fruit. People who eat the fruit in tuma. Why? Because I cannot help them. I cannot grind with them and help them. So how can you tell me I could? Amar Abaye says, no, you're making a mistake. He says, there we're not, what we're talking about is not a regular person. We're talking about a Kohen who eats truma when it's tameh, which is absolutely forbidden from the Torah. That is the deraisa. Well, says 1 second, if that's really the case, it's talking about an absolute deraisa, a Kohen who eats truma when it's unclean. Mafkidin, okay. How can you tell me I'm allowed to leave it with him and trust him? Reminu mafkidin truma etzel Yisrael amaretz. They said, did we learn like I'm allowed to leave truma with a Yisrael who's uneducated? I'm not afraid he's going to touch it. The Lord said Kohen amaretz, but I can't leave it with a Kohen who's an amaretz. Why? They should leave a gospel because he's used to it. The Kohen who's uneducated, he's used to eating truma, and he's an amaretz, and he will touch the truma and make it tameh. So how do you tell me I can leave it with the Kohen? Amar Rabbi Elazar, here's what it's talking about. It's talking about an earthenware container that has a tight top. The earthenware containers are amazing. It's an amazing law from the Torah. They can only become tameh from the inside and not from the outside. As long as the top is sealed, you can touch it and it won't become tameh. So the reason I'm allowed to leave it is because it's sealed in a container. It's like it's hermetically sealed. Legal, halachically, hermetically sealed. It can't become tameh even if the Kohen Hamaretz would touch it. It's not a problem. It's not going to become tameh. Either 1 second. But there's a way that even an earthenware vessel that's not open can become tameh. Why? Because a woman who's nida, for example, she can make something tameh merely by carrying it, even when she never touches it. The fact that she carries the inside of the bottle by carrying the outside, she's matame what's inside it. Amazing. She can break this barrier. She has to be afraid. Amar Yomi says, "Lo kasha, don't worry." Khan, he says, the Bryce that says what? That I cannot leave the stuff with the Kohen Hamaretz. The Perushuchu, it's talking about fruit, like you said before, that had gotten wet, it could become tameh. Okay? Khan, the Perushuchu. And here when we said that we're allowed to leave them, it's talking about fruits that were never made wet. That I don't have to worry that he's going to wet them and the tameh, I don't have to worry about it. He's going to touch them, okay, but he's not going to first wet them and then touch them. I still have a kasha. I want to bring my wheat to a kuti. Remember, kutis we never were sure. They converted because they're afraid of lions. They were never careful. They weren't careful about mice or so. We never trusted them. Okay, so a guy brings his grain to a kuti to grind. So just a very uneducated regular Jew to grind. When you give them the grain, you can give it and take it back. And if you gave them tithe grains, you can assume that they didn't replace them with something else. And if you gave them non-seventh year produce, you can assume that you got back the same stuff. But you cannot assume that if you gave it to them clean, that it remained clean. So how can you tell me that you're allowed to give it to them and not worry? Hi, my roomie, what kind of kasha is that? Labuk mina, we already explained that. Okay, but perish lokshu, we talked about that. The reason you're allowed to leave them because there's produce that never became wet. No, even if I'm worried that a person is going to touch them when he's tameh, I'm not worried that he's going to get them wet and then touch them when he's tameh. That's too much. You don't have to worry about it. Udakarla makarla. So that was since we already answered it. Why did they think it was a kasha? The truth is that they brought this kasha up because they had a completely different mishnah. We learned the following. We learned that when you bring produce to an amaretz grinder, that you can assume when you take it back, if you gave him stuff that was meiser, it's the same stuff, and he didn't replace with unmeiser stuff. And if it was non-70 year stuff, you can assume that he didn't replace it with 70 year stuff. And we don't worry that he replaced it. That was one we're minu, but we learned the other way. I know saying we got a mother-in-law problem. A guy gives his mother-in-law, okay, and she is from an uneducated family. A guy gives his mother-in-law, okay, dough, and she wants her to bake him a bread. He gives her dough, okay. Meiser shouldn't say law. He has to take meiser from what he gives to her. Tell him when he takes it back, he has to take meiser again. But he has to give her meiser so she won't do wrong. And then in case she messed it up, when she gives it back, he has to take meiser a second time. Because we're afraid if the dough he gave her spoiled, she's going to replace it with her dough, and it's therefore with the stuff he gave her has to meiser, so she doesn't eat stuff that wasn't meiser. And when she gives it back, he has to be afraid that she replaced it with hers, and he has to take meiser again. So how can that be? So you see that we do worry that uneducated people switch things. He says, no, mother-in-laws are different. Normally, you don't have to have a mother-in-law special. Why? Hasan k'diktanim timer, like we learned, Amar Yehuda, roti b'takanas bita ubosh mechasana. Because why? Because she wants her daughter to be in good shape, and she's embarrassed in front of the chassan. And therefore, if his dough spoils, she's going to be embarrassed to give him to say it's spoiled, and she's going to give him from her. But normally, we don't have to worry that educated people will replace. But here, you do. And in general, you'd be surprised. There's actually a special love of mother-in-laws to the son-in-laws. You may not realize it. They're particularly attracted. When I met my first mother-in-law, I was a kid. So we're going to get married sometime. I'm meeting my future parents. I meet my mother-in-law. She doesn't even say a word to me. She walks up. She tucks my shirt in. She didn't say hello. The first thing she tucked my shirt in. That's all. That's you're the son. Okay, she's the mother. It's a rule. You have to. It's a mother. That's a mother-in-law. They take over. That's the. It's not like that. I have my present wife. I'm very close with her mother. So in the old sitcoms, I don't know if you remember, in the old sitcoms, when the husband and wife would have a fight, so the woman would start crying. She says, "I'm going home to your mother. I'm going home to my mother." So I tell my wife, she says, "I'm going home to your mother." Okay. Uli, you want to tell me what? That in general, we don't be afraid. If you even a regular person, we're not afraid that the person is going to switch what you gave. I want to show you that even non-mother-in-law relationships, you have to be afraid people will switch and give a better. They'll replace your bad one with their good one. Why? Didn't we learn? Hanosin lepundakis. A Talmid Chacham is learning. He stays at the motel. But over there, motel was a home. He stays. So he gives the innkeeper lady Meiser Shuna same law when he. So he gives her the dough and she bakes it. He takes meiser for what he gives her, so she shouldn't eat what's forbidden. Okay. He also when she gives it back, he takes meiser again. Why? Lest maybe she replaced his with hers. Because she switches. See, regular people, they said no, it's the same thing. Also, there it's a special relationship. Hashem Maria over there, she figures it's okay to switch. And she says, she says, look, this guy's a yeshiva boy. I want to be nice to him. So another person she wouldn't switch, but a yeshiva guy, she says, listen, his bread that I baked, it's already stale. I want him to have fresh bread. I said, let me give him my hot fresh bread. I'll take his 3-day-old bread already, his cold bread, and I will eat it. He says, still, I'm going to show you that. Come on, even non-innkeeper ladies and non-mother-in-laws, we still have to be afraid that people will switch your bad one for their good one. What time didn't we learn? We learned that the wife in a family where they're educated can grind with the wife of a family that are not educated. Bismanchi Tameya, in a time when the educated wife is Tameh, when she's Tameh, she can grind with her. Bismanchi Tahora, okay, but when she's clean, okay, and therefore she's likely to touch the fruit, okay, she's likely to take the element fruit, she's not allowed to grind with it because that's what she's going to take it. He says, no, even when she's unclean, she's not going to touch. She shouldn't grind with her. If nay, because her friend, the non-educated woman, is just going to pass her some of the food that she's forbidden and she's going to eat it. Hashta min ganganva. If you see that the woman she's grinding with who had no right to give it to her, and she steals from her husband, and she'll give it to her, you don't think she'll switch it? Amar Rav Yosef, he says, no, it's no comparison. Hasan Lami Mori, again, it's a special relationship. She teaches herself that it's okay. Mama, she says what? Torah midishe kachol. You have a rule in the Torah, when an animal is threshing grain, you're not allowed to stop the animal. You're not allowed to muzzle the animal. You're not allowed. If an ox is trampling the grain to separate, the shell from the grain, you're not allowed to muzzle it. It has to eat. So this woman figures, what's the difference between a human and an ox? If an ox is working on the produce, you have to let it eat. If my girlfriend is helping me grind, she's not worse than an ox. I have to give it to eat. But she's not an ox. She's not correct. You understand? But here's the main point. To summarize, here's the point. In all these three cases, we have knocked you off. We said yes. There are three cases where you do have to worry that a person will switch your bad thing for their good thing, or give you something that's not yours and it's not properly adjusted. But normally you don't have to worry that a person is going to switch. And these three cases, the mother-in-law, she especially wants to please you for her daughter's sake. You have to worry about innkeeper. Why? Because if you're a yeshiva bacher, because she's particularly nice to yeshiva bacher. In the last case, you have to worry also that your friend, if you're helping her, she's going to think you're no worse than an animal. She's going to give you this stuff, but she's not going. So that's a special case. You're right. You have to worry. She'll do anything to please you. Maybe she'll even switch. But in normal case, you don't have to worry about it. You have to know, Rabbi Feinstein, at one point in his life, I don't know if you know the story. In Europe, he learned in a certain shul, a woman used to cook for him, and he gained tremendous amount of weight. I don't know if you know the story. It's famous. And it was because she cooked, and he felt that it was so important for her to feed him. He felt he had to eat it. He gained weight. He gained tremendous weight because he could not displease the woman. You understand? Because for her, it was so important for her. She wanted to feed it, to feed this young Talmid Chacham. So he ate up all the food, even made him gain weight that he didn't want to gain. There's another story which is also incredible. That one time, it was a certain woman gave him cake to eat, but he didn't trust it. He didn't trust her kashrus. He said, "Look, I'm sorry." He said, "I don't eat cake." And he stopped eating cake. He didn't eat cake after that.
For the rest of his life?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, "I don't eat cake."
That's a lot of self-control.
Yeah, self-control. Is it one of my favorite stories? And it's they tell the story about so many people, so I don't know if it's true. But even if the story is not true, it should be true because the lesson is a good lesson. I'll tell you the story. I'm not late yet. I'll tell you the story. There was once a woman. She came to the rabbi. She said, "You have to help me. My husband is being ruined by the goyim in town. Every night around midnight time, they come, they bang on the door, and they take him out. They get him drunk. He comes home drunk every night. It's ruining his life. I need you to help me." He says, "Okay, don't worry." He says, "I'm going to be at your house tonight. By midnight, I'm going to help you." So a little while before midnight, the rabbi shows up at the house, and he says to the woman, "Husband, go into the back room. I'll take care of them." Midnight comes. There's a big knocking at the door. There's a whole crowd of going, "Hey, come on, let's go!" The bang coming out of here. The rabbi opens the door. There's no crowd, no goyim. It's just the Satan himself. The Satan is there alone, facing the rabbi at the door. He says, "Give me that guy." The rabbi says, "Let me have a cigarette first." The Satan says, "Okay." So he didn't smoke anymore. They tell about so many people, but the lesson is a good lesson because that's the way. Sometimes that's the trick. Sometimes you have to just know you have to adjust the reality you adjust the reality of the problem, and that's the only way to solve it. That's an extreme though. You have to really know, you have to know who you are. Like you said, you're right. You have to know who you are, what situation is, but sometimes that's what you got to do. You have to adjust the. Okay, and today's a little convoluted, but the message is the same. In all these cases, you see what every place where we can be inclusive, we do. That's what I want to show you. Not by a Russia. When a person's wicked, then we don't want to include Rishaim. We don't want to include a Russia. Russia, you got to get rid of. But when people are not Rishaim, people don't always live up to the standard. I'm not looking to. I'm not looking to. You don't want people to have a bad self-image. You want to give them a good self-image. You want them to come. You want to come close. You want to keep including them. And all the places that I told you, there's all these things of Darkei Shalom. The point is what? It's to keep society together. You don't want people walking around feeling bad. That's exactly what you don't want. It's crazy. And look at all these mass shootings. You talk to the kid. What happened? Somebody bullied him. They laughed at him when he had a cheap shirt or this or that. Or for every dumb reason that they destroy people's Personalities go out and do terrible things. We want the opposite. We don't want people to have a good self-image, to feel good about themselves, and that's the right way. You want to make everybody feel good. You don't make people feel bad. Rishoyim, you have to make them feel bad because they're Rishoyim. You have to get rid of them. They're hurting everybody. Get them out of here. But everybody else have to make them feel good and bring them close. Word to the wise. Oh, a wonderful day.
Yasher koach, Rabbi, Yasher koach.
Yes, God, thank you. Have a wonderful day. God bless.
You too.
My first training in, there's a special training.
Walking, Ruvain?
Yeah,
Huh?
I did my
Are you
first
walking?
yeah.
Are you?
training
Yeah.
in a
No, I'm
Catholic.
gonna
It was
try to get a ride with.
It was a hospital. 80% of the patients
Oh.
were Catholic,
Catholics.
and let me tell you, the other 20% were.
Thank you,
The
Mark.
first
Thank you, Bob.